Get out of here. This area isn't for you." The words cut sharply through the stillness of morning as Officer Lucas Archer confronted a black woman dressed sharply in a tailored business suit outside the courthouse. Before she could even respond, he grabbed her by the arm. "Officer, I have every right to be here," Naomi Sterling said, her voice composed. "Like hell you do," Archer snapped, then gave a quick whistle. "Barrett, help me get this trash out of here." The two officers seized her arms, dragging her backward across the concrete. Her leather briefcase scraped noisily along the ground, her heels slipping as she tried to steady herself. Inside the building, courthouse employees froze in place, some already lifting their phones to record. What they saw wasn't a disturbance. It was a professional woman being yanked away like a criminal. Naomi didn't scream, didn't resist. She held her head high, her dignity intact, even as two grown men manhandled her in front of the very institution meant to uphold justice. Dear viewer, before we begin, please write in the comments where you are watching from, and support us with a like and a subscribe. Inside the courtroom, the air felt charged with tension. Officer Lucas Archer adjusted his uniform as he stepped onto the witness stand. His lawyer, Keegan, all sharp lines and practiced confidence, approached like a man who'd defended more than a few officers in his day. "Officer Archer, could you tell the court a bit about your training background?" Keegan began smoothly. Archer straightened his spine, voice firm. "I've been with courthouse security for 15 years, sir. Mostly on night shift, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Been doing that for over a decade. I know this building inside and out, from procedures to potential threats." "And on the morning in question, were you working your usual shift?" "No, sir. Officer Delgado called out with food poisoning. They asked me to cover that morning as an emergency fill-in." Archer's tone hinted at self-importance, like he'd done them all a favor. "In all your years, how many times have you worked the morning shift?" "Maybe 5 ever." He shrugged. "Totally different crew during the day. I don't know the people. I'm usually clocking out when they're clocking in." Archer shifted, getting comfortable in his story. "I've only seen 2 black judges in my time here, both older men, Judge Victor Alvarez and Judge Whitfield. But this woman?" He gave a dismissive shake of his head. "She didn't look like any judge I've ever seen." "And what exactly did you observe that morning?" "About 6:45 a.m. I saw her heading toward the judge's entrance, the one that's restricted. She was dressed sharp, I'll give her that, but something just felt off." Archer narrowed his eyes, recalling the moment. "In my experience, when someone belongs somewhere, they walk like it. No hesitation, no nervous glances. But she was acting evasive." "Did you confront her?" "I did. Told her she couldn't use that entrance. She got defensive right away, demanding access, saying she belonged there. That's textbook behavior for someone trying to bluff their way into a secure area." "What happened next?" "She grew more agitated. Said she had business in the restricted zone, but couldn't produce any official ID or credentials." Archer leaned in slightly, more serious now. "That's a red flag in any situation. Did you try to confirm who she was?" "Absolutely," Archer insisted. "I asked for ID, courthouse badge, judge credentials, anything. She had nothing. I don't judge people by how they look. I go by the book. No ID, no entry." "And what about the physical removal?" "She refused multiple lawful commands to leave. Her voice was raised, and she was drawing attention from others arriving early. I called for backup. Situation was clearly escalating." And Officer Barrett responded, "Yes, Barrett and I have worked together 3 years. He can back up everything. When someone refuses lawful orders, our job is to remove them. It's basic security protocol to maintain safety." Keegan paused theatrically. "Did you use excessive force at any point?" "Not even close," Archer said, indignant. "We used only the necessary level of force to escort a non-compliant person from a restricted zone. She wasn't hurt, just relocated to the public area where she should have been in the first place. We did everything by the book." "Why didn't you contact courthouse administration to verify her credentials?" Archer looked genuinely confused. Sir, it was 6:45 in the morning. Administration doesn't open that early. We were on a skeleton security crew. If we called every time someone claimed they had the right to be somewhere, we'd lose control of the whole building. In your professional judgment, did you handle the situation correctly? Without a doubt, Archer said confidently. I upheld courthouse security standards, followed protocol, and treated her just like anyone else. I've handled hundreds of incidents like this. This one was by the book. But as defense attorney Lila Bennett rose for cross-examination, a subtle shift crossed Archer's face. Just a flicker, but noticeable. Officer Archer, she began. You said you've worked nights for the past decade. When was the last time you updated yourself on the daytime judicial staff? Archer paused. Well, that's not typically part of my responsibilities. So you wouldn't be aware if new judges had been appointed recently? The night shift isn't typically updated on administrative changes unless they directly impact our duties. Archer replies stiffly. From the prosecution table, Gwa lifts a document. Were you aware that Judge Naomi Sterling was officially sworn in to this courthouse 3 weeks ago? Archer's jaw tightens. No, I wasn't informed of that. Gwa tilts her head slightly. Wouldn't reviewing the personnel roster be part of basic security protocol? We each have designated zones and responsibilities. Archer says, his voice starting to lose its edge. I focus on my assigned duties. Your duties include identifying authorized personnel, correct? Yes, within the scope of my normal responsibilities. But the confidence in his voice is slipping. And yet, Gwa presses, you made no attempt to verify whether Ms. Sterling had authorization before physically removing her from the premises. Archer's jaw clenches. She didn't show any proper ID. Did you ask what kind of identification she had on her? There's a pause. Longer than before. She should have presented courthouse credentials. Gwa's voice is sharper now. That wasn't my question. Did you specifically ask her what identification she was carrying? Another beat of silence. Longer still. I followed standard protocol. Gwa lowers her papers to the table with deliberate calm. Officer Archer, in your 15 years of experience, how many times have you physically removed someone from courthouse property? Archer shifts in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. I don't keep track exactly. Maybe 15, 20 times? And how many of those individuals were black women in professional attire? Keegan objects, but it's too late. The courtroom has already absorbed the impact. Archer's demeanor shifts again. The man who began this testimony with bravado now looks like someone confronting cracks in his own story. Who doesn't let up. You testified earlier that you don't make assumptions based on appearances. But isn't it true that you immediately assumed Ms. Sterling didn't belong, simply because of how she looked? I observed suspicious behavior. Archer responds, trying to regain control. What behavior? Gwa demands. She walked toward a restricted door. That's it. Walking toward a door? Her voice cuts sharply through the quiet. She looked out of place. Archer blurts, his voice defensive and raised. Out of place how? The courtroom goes still. Everyone knows what's just happened, including Archer. His face tenses as he realizes he's contradicted himself. The earlier claim of impartiality crumbles under the weight of his own words. He struggles for a response, something that doesn't sound exactly like what it is, racial profiling, wearing a badge. I used my professional judgment, he offers weakly. 15 years of experience. But it's too late. The courtroom can feel it. His story is unraveling, thread by thread, and everyone is watching it come apart. Then, Naomi Sterling rises from her seat, calm, poised, and completely in control. She moves toward the witness stand with the kind of grace that demands silence. This isn't someone asking for justice. This is someone who already belongs in this courtroom, in ways most people haven't yet realized. Please state your name for the record. Attorney Bennett begins. Naomi Catherine Sterling, she says clearly. Her voice is steady, precise, untouched by the chaos of the morning. Miss Sterling, can you describe your usual morning routine on the day in question? Naomi folds her hands gently in her lap, posture composed. I arrived at the courthouse around 6:45 a.m., as I typically do. I prefer to come in early. It gives me time to review my notes and prepare mentally for the day ahead. Your preparation? Bennett prompts. Yes. I follow a structured routine each morning, reviewing case files, confirming schedules, ensuring everything is aligned. It's essential to be centered before court proceedings begin. There's a quiet authority in her words, the kind that comes from someone who commands her schedule, not someone who follows it. And why did you use the main entrance that day instead of your usual one? For the first time, a flicker of frustration crosses Naomi's face, but it's swiftly tucked away. The electronic access system was down. My usual entrance wasn't functioning, so I used the main one. It was inconvenient, but I assumed it would be a minor issue. Your usual entrance? Bennett asks. Yes. I typically use a private entrance, one that allows me to reach my office directly without moving through public areas. Privacy and efficiency are critical when you carry the kind of responsibilities I do. Gwa steps closer to the witness stand. Can you describe your encounter with Officer Archer? Naomi doesn't waver. Her tone stays professional, but the quiet power behind her voice cuts through the courtroom. Officer Archer confronted me with immediate hostility. Before I could say a word, he made a series of derogatory assumptions about who I was and why I was there. Can you be specific? He called me ghetto trash and told me to go find the welfare office. The words fall heavy. When I attempted to clarify that I had business there, he became more aggressive, more dismissive. The courtroom listens closely. Naomi's voice remains even, but the pain behind her composure hums just beneath the surface. Did Officer Archer ask for your ID? No, not once. He didn't ask why I was there, didn't give me a chance to explain. He took one look at me and decided I didn't belong. And when you tried to explain, I stayed calm. I told him I had a right to be there, that I worked in the building. His answer was to call for backup and treat me as a threat. Her eyes flash, not with anger, but resolve. They dragged me across the pavement like a criminal, all while my colleagues watched from the windows and doors. The courtroom shifts at that word, colleagues. The weight of it lands differently now. Something about who this woman is and what she represents begins to settle in the minds of everyone watching. Did you resist the officers, Miss Sterling? Absolutely not, Naomi says firmly. Even in the face of humiliation and physical discomfort, I kept my composure. Resisting would have only made an already inappropriate situation worse. Her voice doesn't waver. It holds the weight of someone used to navigating high-stakes moments, someone who's learned that silence and stillness can sometimes speak louder than any protest. Sometimes, she adds, her tone even but resolute. The most powerful answer to injustice is to stay composed and let the truth do the talking. Gwa turns toward the jury. Ms. Sterling, you testified that you had official business at the courthouse that morning. Could you tell us more about that? Naomi pauses, choosing her words with care. I had professional obligations that required me to be present by 9 a.m. sharp. These responsibilities aren't minor. They affect the lives of many people and demand a high degree of preparation. And this was scheduled in advance. Yes, she replies. Several weeks in advance, actually. Because of the nature of my work, my mornings are tightly structured. Missing or being late could have serious consequences, not just for me, but for others relying on me. Gwa leans in. What kind of work requires such precision? Another pause. Naomi chooses her words deliberately. It's work that involves making decisions that directly impact people's futures. It demands legal precision and moral clarity. It's not work that allows for distractions or delays. The way she says it, the courtroom leans in closer. This isn't someone filing paperwork. Her responsibilities are significant, though she hasn't said exactly what they are. Ms. Sterling, Gwa continues. You seem very familiar with courthouse procedures. Why is that? I've spent many years in courtrooms, she replies. I understand how the system operates, how security is meant to uphold safety without undermining individual dignity. I know how personnel are expected to interact with the public, with fairness and respect. It's clear this isn't just knowledge, it's lived experience, far beyond that of an average courthouse visitor. In your professional opinion, Gua asks, was Officer Archer's conduct appropriate? Naomi's expression hardened slightly. Officer Archer violated fundamental principles of professional security. He acted on assumption and bias, ignored basic verification protocols, and escalated a situation that could have been resolved with a simple conversation. She pauses, letting her words settle. Real security comes from knowing how to verify credentials without stripping someone of their dignity. Did his actions interfere with your ability to perform your job? Absolutely, she says. His actions delayed me, caused unnecessary emotional stress, and disrupted the focus I needed for duties that require clear, unwavering judgment. The weight in her voice suggests those duties are far more consequential than anyone fully realizes. Then comes Keegan, Officer Archer's attorney, ready with his cross-examination. His tone is skeptical, his questions sharp. Ms. Sterling, isn't it true that all of this could have been avoided if you had just presented your ID? Naomi's reply is calm, but pointed. I shouldn't have to prove my right to exist in a public building, she says. And for the record, Officer Archer never asked for my identification. He didn't want clarity. He wanted control. But surely, Keegan presses, you understand the need for security protocols. I understand security intimately, she says. And I understand when it's being used as a shield for discriminatory behavior. The conviction in her voice is unshakable. She speaks like someone who's had to make this distinction many times, in court, in life. You claim you had professional duties at 9 a.m. Can you tell the court what exactly your profession is? Naomi meets his gaze squarely. I work within the justice system. My job is to ensure that legal proceedings are handled fairly and according to the law. Keegan narrows his eyes. That's vague. Are you a lawyer? A small smile touches her lips. My role requires deep legal knowledge, she says. Yes. But that doesn't answer the question directly, he challenges. I'm answering it as precisely as the question allows, she says, with poise that's almost regal, a tone that suggests she's more used to asking questions than answering them. Keegan leans forward. Why not just state your job title? Naomi pauses, this time with gravity. Because naming my title would change the way this room sees what happened. And I believe Officer Archer's behavior should be judged based on his actions, not on who I happen to be. The courtroom shifts. A murmur builds. The question hangs in the air. Who is she really? What role does she play that could alter everything? But Naomi offers no more. She sits in silence, the quiet confidence of someone who knows she holds all the cards, and is simply waiting for the right moment to reveal them. Flashback, 3 weeks earlier. Chief Judge Corinne Hughes stands before a packed courthouse, raising her hand. Please welcome the newest member of our judicial bench, the Honorable Naomi Catherine Sterling. Naomi stood in her robes for the first time that day, taking an oath that elevated her from seasoned prosecutor to sitting judge. Cameras clicked. Applause rang out. Her swearing-in was recorded, filed, celebrated. But none of it reached Lucas Archer, still working nights, still unaware. Now, in the quiet of her home study, its walls lined with framed Harvard Law degrees and justice awards, Naomi Sterling flips through a file that could upend everything. Her phone buzzes. Naomi, have you made a decision about pursuing this formally? It's Chief Judge Hughes. Her voice is measured, but concerned. This isn't just about me, Corinne, Naomi replies, setting aside a printout of surveillance stills. It's about a pattern that can't stay hidden any longer. But filing formal charges against courthouse security while serving as our newest judge? Chief Judge Hughes' voice carries caution. That's exactly why I have to do it, Naomi responds without hesitation. If I don't challenge this now, I'm condoning it. And that's not what I took an oath to do. She sets a thick manual on her desk, its margins filled with handwritten notes and highlighter marks. I helped draft these very security protocols in my previous role as legal advisor, she says, flipping through the pages. Archer violated 6 separate guidelines. And he claims he didn't know who you were. That's the root of the problem, Naomi says, her tone sharpening. He never bothered to ask. He saw a black woman and made a snap judgment. That should tell us everything. After the call, she opens her laptop and begins combing through the courthouse security footage obtained during discovery. The recordings show more than just isolated incidents. They reveal a disturbing pattern. Timestamp, March 15th Dr. Victor Alvarez, a prominent civil rights attorney, is stopped at the entrance. Archer questions his presence aggressively and demands to see his bar license. The footage makes it clear Archer never requests the same from white attorneys. Timestamp, April 3rd. Elena Park, a Latina court reporter, is confronted about entering through the staff door, the same door she's used for 3 years without issue. Timestamp, May 20th. Professor Owen Patel, an Asian American legal scholar, is forced to show 3 separate forms of identification just to attend a public hearing. Again and again, the pattern repeats. People of color treated like potential intruders, while white visitors walk through without a second glance. Archer's posture, his tone, the scrutiny, it all follows the same script. Naomi cross-references these events with complaint records. The trend is impossible to ignore. 7 informal complaints filed against Officer Archer over 2 years, all dismissed without any formal investigation. Every complainant was a person of color. Then she pulls his personnel file. The glowing reviews praise Archer's vigilance and commitment to a secure courthouse environment. But the wording is telling, coded language celebrating behavior that, in practice, only targets minorities. Her assistant, Nadia, enters the study carrying another folder. Judge Sterling, here are the phone transcripts you requested. Naomi nods, flipping through the printed records. Archer's recorded conversations with fellow officers reveal an ugly truth. In breakroom chats, he jokes about keeping certain types in their place and refers to professionally dressed black women as probably here for child support court. Nadia adds, he hasn't attended civil rights or diversity training in at least 5 years. He signed up repeatedly, but always finds a way to skip them. She flips to another document. And every security complaint, all reviewed by Sergeant Whitaker, his supervisor and close friend of 12 years. No independent oversight. No accountability. Naomi continues reviewing the material, methodically, deliberately. Audio clips catch Archer using racial slurs in the courthouse breakroom. Statements from multiple courthouse staff describe a pattern of demeaning comments, targeting anyone who doesn't look like what Archer deems professional. The most damning evidence? Archer's own incident reports. In them, he labels black professionals as aggressive, hostile, or uncooperative, language that never appears in reports about white visitors. In contrast, similar behavior from white individuals is described as assertive or confident. She uncovers 2 past use of force complaints in Archer's record, both involving family members of black defendants. Both dismissed without substantial inquiry. Naomi gathers the growing pile of evidence, feeling the enormity of it settle around her. This isn't about a single bad encounter. It's about a culture, one that uses the language of security to shield systemic racism, enabled by leadership more concerned with peace and appearance than actual justice. She looks over at the framed photo from her swearing-in ceremony, standing tall in her judicial robes, hand raised, promise etched in her voice. That oath meant something. Tomorrow, she would prove it. And the irony isn't lost on her, that the same officer who dragged her across courthouse steps had no idea he'd be the one exposing an entire system. His assumption that she was just another powerless woman will be the very thing that unmasks the power she does hold. Because this isn't just about her. It's about making sure no one else is ever dragged from their own workplace for the crime of simply existing while black. Sometimes, Naomi realizes, the scales of justice don't tip, they flip. Back in court, Attorney Lila Bennett steps up to the evidence table with the kind of quiet confidence that suggests she's about to set something explosive in motion. She holds up a tablet. "Your Honor," she says, "we'd like to present Exhibit A, 6 months of courthouse surveillance footage, documenting Officer Archer's pattern of conduct." All eyes turn to the large courtroom screen as it flickers to life. First clip, timestamp 3 months ago DR. Victor Alvarez approaches the courthouse, suited, briefcase in hand, posture calm. His appearance nearly identical to Naomi's that morning. Archer's voice comes through the speakers. "Hold up there, sir. Where do you think you're going?" Dr. Alvarez replies politely. "I'm here for the Whitaker hearing. I'm counsel for the defense." Archer doesn't flinch. "I'm going to need to see some identification. Can't be too careful these days." The footage shows Archer scrutinizing multiple documents: bar license, driver's license, business card, while a white attorney in jeans and a hoodie walks right past, unchallenged. Archer's stance is unmistakable. Aggressive, dismissive. The same behavior he showed Naomi. Bennett turns back to Archer. "Can you explain this interaction, officer?" Archer shifts in his seat. "That's standard protocol. We check everyone." But what clicks to the next video. Same day, 20 minutes later. A young white woman in casual clothes walks up to the same entrance. "Morning, miss," Officer Archer says with cheerful ease, stepping aside as a young white woman approaches. "Actually, I'm not sure where to go," she replies. "I'm here for jury duty. This is my first time." "No problem at all," Archer answers with a smile. "Head up to the second floor. They'll take care of you. No request for ID. No questions. No scrutiny. Just a warm welcome." Bennett turns back toward Archer. Her voice drips with irony. "Is this your usual protocol, Officer Archer?" Before he can respond, the screen continues rolling. Clip after clip, each one chipping away at his defense. There's Elena Park, the Latina court reporter, halted and questioned about a staff entrance she's used for years, while white employees stream past her without a glance. There's Professor Owen Patel, an Asian-American law scholar, asked for 3 separate IDs just to attend a public session. Meanwhile, white observers stroll in uninterrupted. With every passing video, Archer's face turns a deeper shade of red. His attorney leaps up with objection after objection, but the pattern is already undeniable. "These are isolated moments," Archer insists. "Taken out of context." Bennett doesn't miss a beat. "We've documented 17 separate incidents over 6 months. Would you like us to review all of them for the court?" But the real blow comes with the audio recordings. Archer's voice crackles from the speakers, recorded during a break room conversation. "You should have seen this uppity black woman today," he says, chuckling. "Acting like she owned the place. Had to shut that down real quick." A pause, then more. "These people think they can just walk in anywhere like they belong. That's why we're here, to keep standards high. I don't care how fancy they dress. I can spot trouble from a mile away." And finally, the dagger. It's about keeping the right kind of people in and the wrong kind out. The courtroom gasps. Archer's face goes pale as his own words echo back at him. His attorney scribbles frantic notes, but the unraveling is now beyond repair. Gore rises. "We call our first witness, Dr. Victor Alvarez." A man in a dark suit approaches the stand. There's no need to explain his credentials. His presence commands respect. "You're a partner at Whitaker Patel and Associates?" "Yes," he replies calmly. 30 years in law. 15 of them as a federal prosecutor." "Can you describe your encounter with Officer Archer?" Dr. Alvarez's voice holds dignity, but there's frustration underneath. "I was treated like a threat simply for entering a building where I've practiced for decades. He questioned my legitimacy, demanded multiple IDs, and used a tone I've never encountered in my legal career." "How did that experience affect you?" "Humiliated, angry, but mostly concerned. Because if that's how he treats a known attorney, I fear for how he treats citizens who can't defend themselves." Next comes Elena Park. Her voice wavers slightly as she takes the stand. "Mississippi Park, how long have you worked at this courthouse?" 8 years, she says. I've used the staff in trance the entire time. What happened with Officer Archer? He stopped me like I was trespassing in my own job. Demanded proof I belonged. Meanwhile, 3 white clerks walked by without so much as a glance. Did it affect your ability to do your job? I was late for a deposition. But worse than that, I felt like I had to prove my right to exist here, after 8 years of service. As each witness takes the stand, the pattern becomes painfully clear. People of color stopped, questioned, and forced to validate themselves, while white visitors pass through like they're invisible to suspicion. Then Gwa introduces Archer's training record. Officer Archer, when was your last diversity or civil rights training? A long pause. It's been a while. 5 years, to be exact, Gwa says. You've missed 17 mandatory sessions, citing schedule conflicts each time. My shift makes those hard to attend. And yet, she cuts in, you've managed to attend firearm training, overtime certification, and multiple development seminars. So why skip the ones about bias and civil rights? Archer doesn't answer. Then comes the most damning witness yet, Sergeant Whitaker, Archer's longtime supervisor. Called as a hostile witness, Whitaker squirms under the pressure. How many complaints have been filed against Officer Archer in the last 2 years? I'd have to check the exact. I'll help you. 7. All from people of color. All dismissed without a single investigation. Officer Archer is a good officer. Sometimes people misunderstand. Misunderstand? Or raises an eyebrow. Or accurately recognize discrimination wrapped in procedure? She places Whitaker's own evaluation of Archer on the projector. Shows excellent judgment in identifying potential risks. Maintains strict access standards. When you wrote potential risks, what did you mean? Whitaker hesitates. People who seem out of place. And who decides what out of place looks like in a public courthouse? No answer. Your experience only seems to flag people of color. How do you explain that? The silence is deafening. The system has just been exposed. Finally, Gwa presents a statistical breakdown compiled by a civil rights analyst. The numbers speak volumes. Officer Archer stops and questions people of color 13 times more than white individuals. He requests additional ID from minorities 89% of the time, compared to 3% for whites. Every recorded physical altercation involves a person of color. These aren't coincidences, Bennett tells the jury. This is racial profiling, methodical, protected, and normalized by a system that rewards bias over accountability. The courtroom doesn't need convincing anymore. They've just watched the truth unfold, and it's damning. Archer's attorney, visibly rattled, scrambles to regain control during redirect. Officer Archer, do you consider yourself a racist? Absolutely not. Archer says quickly, I treat everyone the same. But the courtroom isn't listening to denials anymore. The videos, the audio, the data, and the witness accounts have spoken louder than any defense could. They've drawn a portrait too complete, too consistent to ignore. A portrait of systematic discrimination cloaked in the language of security. As the evidence wraps up, a deeper truth settles over the courtroom. This isn't just about one morning, one incident, one man. It's about the everyday mechanisms of institutional racism, invisible to those who benefit, devastating to those who don't, enabled by comfort, protected by silence. It's justice distorted under the guise of order. Officer Archer no longer sits tall at the defense table. Gone is the confident guard from opening statements. What's left is a man visibly shrinking under the weight of exposure, not just of his actions, but of what those actions reveal about the system he represents. But the most powerful moment is still to come. Attorney Bennett turns back to Naomi. What should be routine follow-up suddenly takes on new gravity. Miss Sterling, Bennett begins. Earlier you mentioned professional obligations on the morning of the incident. Could you specify what those obligations were? Naomi straightens. Her tone shifts. There's something different in her presence now. Firmer, weightier. I was scheduled to preside over the 9 a.m. criminal docket, she says clearly. I arrived early to review case files and prepare for that morning's proceedings. The word preside lands like thunder. Gasps ripple through the courtroom. Jaws drop. Jurors exchange stunned looks. Archer goes ghost white. His attorney drops his pen, frozen. Judge Delgado pounds the gavel for order. Quiet in the courtroom. Court Clerk Whitaker stands slowly. Her voice trembles. Your Honor, she confirms, Judge Sterling was indeed scheduled to oversee the 9 a.m. criminal docket in this very courtroom. The revelation is seismic. The woman Archer dragged, degraded, and dismissed as ghetto trash outranks nearly everyone in the building. She wasn't an intruder. She was a judge. And not just any judge, one appointed just 3 weeks earlier, now sitting at the heart of the very justice system Archer claimed to protect. The humiliation is written all over Archer's face. Hands trembling, he stares straight ahead, unmoving. He didn't just rough up a courthouse visitor. He manhandled a judge, a federal officer of the court. He used his years of professional judgment to identify trouble and somehow missed the most important new face in the building. Bennett doesn't stop. Judge Sterling wasn't visiting, she says deliberately. She was reporting to work, to her job, as a presiding judge in Division C of this criminal court. Every fact now fits into a larger frame. The professional obligations, her knowledge of procedure, her calm presence, her insistence on respect. It wasn't performance. It was position. Archer's attorney whispers furiously in his ear, but Archer just stares. The man who once radiated authority now looks like someone whose entire foundation just crumbled. Judge Sterling, Bennett asks, how did Officer Archer's actions impact your ability to perform your judicial duties that day? Naomi's voice is steady, judicial, not emotional. My docket was delayed by 45 minutes, she says, while I recovered from the encounter and changed into my judicial robes. Several defendants were left waiting and holding. Their cases, their futures, all delayed because Officer Archer decided I didn't look like I belonged. It's no longer just about what happened to her. It's about the ripples. Defendants, victims, families. Justice held up by one man's prejudice. Did you ever consider revealing your identity to end the situation? Naomi's answer is calm but weighted. I shouldn't have to justify my presence in a public building, she says. Officer Archer's actions deserve scrutiny not because of who I am, but because of what he did. Every person, regardless of title or power, deserves dignity. The room goes silent. No more protests. No more spin. Because now everyone understands what happened. Archer didn't just make a bad call. He didn't just disrespect a colleague. He committed a federal offense, an assault against a sitting judge, a grave crime, a staggering professional failure, and an unmissable symbol of how bias blinds even the most experienced eyes. I didn't know. Archer finally whispers, voice hoarse. Naomi turns to him, her words soft, but sharp as steel. No, you didn't ask, she says. You saw a black woman and decided she didn't belong. 15 years of training taught you everything, except basic human respect. And just like that, the courtroom sees it for what it is. What began as a civil rights hearing has become unprecedented. A sitting judge pursuing justice for her own assault, not as a judge demanding deference, but as a citizen demanding dignity. The power dynamic hasn't shifted. It's collapsed and rebuilt itself entirely. Now, Officer Lucas Archer, who once dragged Judge Naomi Sterling from her own courthouse steps, sits on trial before the very system he tried to gatekeep. The hunter has become the hunted. And justice, it seems, has a poetic memory. Because the woman he tried to strip of power turned out to hold more power than he ever imagined. The courtroom stares not at the accused, but at the truth. Judge Delgado calls for a recess to let the room breathe, but everyone knows what they've just witnessed. History, a reckoning, and a new definition of justice, spoken through reversal. When court resumes, it's not just a continuation. It's a new era. And Attorney Bennett, walking slowly toward the witness box, carries the truth like a torch. Archer, who once swaggered into the courtroom like a man in command, now sits slouched, hollow-eyed, as if awaiting his own execution. "Officer Archer," Bennett begins, her tone sharp but controlled. "You just found out the woman you dragged out of the courthouse was a sitting federal judge. How does that make you feel?" Archer's voice cracks. I'm devastated. I had no idea." "You had no idea," Bennett echoes, "because you never asked. You saw a black woman and immediately saw a threat. Isn't that correct?" "No," he says weakly. "In 15 years of courthouse security, how many white women have you physically removed from the premises?" His attorney objects, but Judge Delgado allows it. Archer says nothing. "I'll take that as 0. And how many black women?" Silence again, heavier this time. "The record shows 5, Bennett says, "including Judge Sterling." "Can you explain that pattern?" Archer winces. "Each situation was different." "Different how?" Bennett presses. "Different skin color, different reactions?" "I don't see color," Archer mutters. "Oh, really? You don't see color," Bennett says, stepping closer. "And yet, you assaulted a federal judge, dragged her across concrete, because you didn't see color? You blocked her from her own courtroom because you're colorblind?" Archer shifts in his seat, trapped. Gore rises next, holding Archer's personnel file. "Your training records show you've skipped 17 mandatory diversity and civil rights trainings. Why?" Archer stammers. "Scheduling conflicts. And yet, you had time to attend every firearms course, every overtime seminar, every professional workshop, just not the ones about civil rights. So it's not that you didn't have time, Officer Archer. It's that you didn't make time." He has no answer. "Let me ask you this. Did Judge Sterling look like a criminal to you that morning?" "It was confusing," he says. "Confusing?" Gore raises an eyebrow. "A professionally dressed woman with a leather briefcase walking toward the courthouse entrance confused you? She didn't show ID. You never asked for ID," Gore snaps. "You assumed. Isn't that right?" Archer barely whispers. "Yes." The admission lands like a hammer. "Officer Archer, what exactly about Judge Sterling told you she was a threat?" she demands. Archer opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. Any answer would expose the truth. Was it her suit? Her posture? Her calm voice? What made you think this woman was heading to the welfare office instead of her courtroom? I made an error in judgment." "An error in judgment," Gore repeats, "or the clearest expression of your beliefs about black women." Objection. Overruled. "But the damage is done. You didn't just profile her. You attacked her. A woman who spent 15 years as a prosecutor. A woman who has likely sent more criminals to prison than you've ever spoken to. And she's the one you saw as the criminal. Why?" Archer breaks. "I don't know. She didn't look like." "Didn't look like what, Officer Archer? A judge? What does a judge look like to you?" The question echoes across the courtroom, and Archer's silence is the answer. "Officer Archer," Gore finishes, "do you believe you're still fit to serve in courthouse security? I've served for 15 years. You just assaulted a federal judge. You've been exposed as someone who systematically targets people of color. You've admitted to judging people based on appearance. How is any of that honorable service?" Archer says nothing. "No further questions, Your Honor." As Bennett and Gore return to their seats, the weight in the room is unmistakable. The entire courtroom, jury, public, media, has witnessed the total collapse of a man and the system he embodied. This wasn't just the unraveling of a single defense. It was the peeling back of institutional racism in real time. Archer, once so certain he was upholding the law, now stands exposed as its greatest contradiction. The man who thought he was guarding the courthouse has become the threat inside it. And in the most poetic twist of all, the woman he tried to strip of power is now the one deciding his fate. Sometimes justice has a sharp sense of irony. Now it's time for closing arguments. Prosecutor Maya Thornton steps forward, her tone somber, yet charged. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she begins, "what you've seen here isn't just about one officer's failure. It's about a system built to protect, yet quietly sustaining discrimination behind badges and protocols. She paces slowly, letting her words sink in. Officer Lucas Archer didn't just assault Judge Naomi Sterling. He assaulted the very idea of equal justice. He attacked dignity. He undermined fairness. And he did it not once, but repeatedly, systematically, and unapologetically. The jury listens intently. This wasn't one bad day, Thornton continues. This was years of unchecked bias, disguised as vigilance. It's a culture of suspicion reserved only for the marginalized. A culture where authority becomes entitlement. She stops in front of the jury box. And Judge Naomi Sterling? She didn't ask for the spotlight. She didn't play her title to gain favor. She let the truth speak, because it shouldn't matter who you are to be treated with basic human decency. A long pause. This case, your verdict, will say something to every courthouse in America. Will we tolerate racism when it hides behind a badge? Or will we hold even those in uniform accountable? She looks each juror in the eye. The choice is yours. The future is watching. Thornton declares, her voice rising with conviction. He assaulted the very Constitution he swore to uphold. But what makes this case truly extraordinary isn't just what Officer Archer did. It's who he did it to. She paces to the evidence table, gesturing toward the towering stack of documents, photos, and reports. He didn't just assault a citizen. He assaulted a sitting federal judge, the living embodiment of the justice system he claimed to serve. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so profoundly tragic. Thornton locks eyes with the jury, letting the silence press in before continuing. The evidence is overwhelming. Footage revealing a disturbing double standard. Audio recordings capturing hateful language. Cold, hard statistics that prove a pattern. And testimony from professionals who were all treated the same way, for the same reason, the color of their skin. She turns fully to the jury now. Officer Archer's defense collapsed because it was built on falsehoods. He claims he doesn't see color, while his record shows he targets people of color. He says he follows protocol, yet his actions violate the most basic standards. He insists Judge Sterling looked suspicious, but what he really means is that she dared to exist while black in America. Her voice now carries the weight of moral clarity. This wasn't a momentary lapse. This was deep, systemic bias, made flesh. A trained officer physically assaulting a federal judge because she didn't fit his idea of what authority should look like. Thornton turns to Archer, voice unwavering. Officer Archer, your 15 years taught you everything, except the most basic truth, that human dignity is not defined by race. Your badge gave you power, and you chose to use it to exclude rather than protect. Returning to the jury, she lifts her voice in crescendo. Judge Sterling could have ended it with 2 words, "I'm the judge," but she didn't, because she knew what Officer Archer never learned, that justice only matters if it applies to everyone, not just the powerful. She pauses, lets the moment breathe. He violated federal civil rights law. He committed assault under color of authority. He denied due process to a federal judge. And most of all, he betrayed the oath to protect, serve, and treat all equally. Thornton closes with one final plea. Find him guilty, not out of vengeance, but to send a message that justice does not wear a uniform, that no badge excuses discrimination, and that even judges, especially judges, deserve dignity. Defense attorney Keegan rises, knowing the weight he's up against. Ladies and gentlemen, I won't pretend my client didn't make serious mistakes, he begins, voice low and measured. But Lucas Archer isn't a monster. He's a man who served for 15 years. And on one morning, under pressure, in unfamiliar circumstances, he made a devastating error in judgment. He struggles to build momentum. Yes, he should have asked for ID. Yes, he should have known who Judge Sterling was. But he didn't. And now his career, his reputation, his family's future, all hang in the balance. Keegan pleads for mercy, but even he seems to know it's futile. We ask for compassion, not because what he did was right, but because even good people can fail. He sits down, defeated. Judge Delgado gives his final instructions, his voice steady and authoritative. You must now determine whether Officer Archer violated federal civil rights, committed assault under color of law, and denied due process. The law is clear. The evidence has been presented. The decision rests with you. The jury returns in just 47 minutes. On the charge of civil rights violations, guilty. On the charge of assault and battery, guilty. On the charge of denial of due process, guilty. Archer slumps, all pretense of strength gone. His attorney touches his shoulder, but it's over. Judge Delgado delivers the sentence immediately. Officer Lucas Archer, you have been convicted of crimes that strike at the foundation of our legal system. You used your badge to discriminate, your position to oppress, and your authority to assault a judge who did not meet your expectations of power. His voice hardens. You are hereby sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 2 years supervised probation. You are permanently barred from working in law enforcement. You will complete 200 hours of community service with civil rights organizations. And this courthouse will implement mandatory bias training, independent oversight of security complaints, and a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, known from this day forward as the Sterling Protocol. Archer is led away in handcuffs, no longer an officer, but a felon, a man undone not just by his actions, but by the biases he never questioned. As the courtroom clears, Judge Sterling remains seated, dignified, and still. Justice was not won with anger, but through the very system Archer thought he could manipulate. The woman he dragged across concrete ensured that no one else would suffer that same indignity. Because true power doesn't need to shout. True justice doesn't rush. And sometimes, justice arrives when a judge seeks it for herself. 6 months later, Lucas Archer wears a mall security uniform. No badge, no gun, just a clipboard and a flashlight. He scans doorways at Valley Plaza, watching for shoplifters. He was once the gatekeeper of justice. Now he guards a food court. The man who once held the weight of federal authority now spends his days patrolling discount stores for minimum wage. His law enforcement career ended the moment he dragged a sitting federal judge across the concrete outside her own courtroom. At night, Lucas Archer fulfills his court-mandated community service hours at the Martin Luther King Jr. Civil Rights Center, face-to-face with the very communities his actions harmed. Former colleagues avoid eye contact, some even crossing the street to escape the shadow of his disgrace. His pension? Gone. His reputation? In ruins. His future? Reduced to whatever jobs will accept a man with a federal conviction for civil rights violations. And the cruelest irony? The officer who once believed it was his job to keep undesirable elements out of the courthouse has become one himself. Meanwhile, Judge Naomi Sterling has become a national symbol of grace, resolve, and transformation. Her story, once a private humiliation, is now public inspiration. Time Magazine, The Washington Post, civil rights journals across the country. Her face, her voice, her courage have stirred something deep in a nation hungry for accountability. She never asked for fame. But when justice called, she answered, and millions took notice. The Sterling Protocol, now adopted in courthouses nationwide, has redefined what security looks like. Every discrimination complaint goes through an independent review board. Bias training is no longer a yearly afterthought. It's a quarterly standard. Any officer caught engaging in discriminatory behavior faces immediate suspension. And victims? They now have direct access to civil rights attorneys. The numbers say it all. Discrimination complaints in courthouses have risen 40%. Not because bias is getting worse, but because, for the first time, people believe they'll be taken seriously. Investigations now occur in 89% of cases, compared to just 12% before. Accountability has replaced silence. Transparency has replaced cover-ups. And at the heart of this change stands Judge Sterling. She's now the youngest appointee to the Federal Civil Rights Commission, pushing forward national reforms with the same quiet force she showed in court. Her legal writings on systemic bias are now part of university curricula. But her most powerful impact? She's changed how we see power and who we believe belongs in it. The woman Officer Archer dismissed as ghetto trash turned out to be the most powerful person in the building. His assumptions didn't just end a career. They revealed the cracks in a system that too often confuses appearance with authority, silence with consent, and dignity with weakness. Today, Judge Sterling presides over her courtroom with a deeper purpose. Every decision she renders honors those without a voice, the ones judged not by their actions, but by their skin. The leather briefcase she carried that morning now rests behind glass at the Smithsonian's Civil Rights Museum. A plaque reads, "This briefcase belonged to the Honorable Judge Naomi Sterling when she was assaulted by courthouse security for appearing suspicious." It stands as a symbol of how dignity, when paired with courage, can defeat prejudice. Archer's case is now mandatory reading in police academies and law enforcement ethics courses. His fall from authority teaches a hard truth. Badges may grant power, but only character sustains it. And while stories like Judge Sterling's are far too common, most don't make headlines. Most victims never get justice. Most acts of discrimination hide behind phrases like, "just doing my job," or "standard procedure." That's why we tell these stories. That's why your voice matters. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.